Quick shout out and thank you to my good friend Teddy. Yeah, you guys remember him. He was able to get into an advanced screening for Spider-Man Homecoming, and he figured, it being the only time he's probably ever going to see a movie before me, contemplated spoiling the movie for me so I wouldn't be able to do one of my own. But no, you know what? He decided to be a good friend. He was like, alright, I won't say anything. I'll let you do your job, Foley. So yeah, right here, man. From me to you. So anyways, let's talk about Spider-Man Homecoming. Spider-Man Homecoming is the newest movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the first standalone Spider-Man movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the 6th overall Spider-Man movie we've ever gotten. Well, since 2002, the 6th one that matters. So yeah, anyone who follows my channel closely knows just how much I've been looking forward to this movie. I've been excited for this movie since it was announced that Sony was going to allow Spider-Man to be a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Then we got a taste of what Tom Holland would be like as Spider-Man in Captain America Civil War, and I only got that much more excited because he fucking killed it in Civil War. And from what I saw in Civil War, he really looked like the best Spider-Man and Peter Parker we had gotten to date, so I was so excited to see him in the forefront of his own movie. Now this is an official spoiler warning. If you have not seen Spider-Man Homecoming yet, I strongly urge you to go check it out because it's really fucking good. What I immediately liked about Spider-Man Homecoming was the opening scene because it touches on Adrian Toomes, you know, the guy who becomes a Vulture, played by Michael Keaton. You see him and his salvage company. It's taking place sometime after the first Avengers movie. They've been hired to clean up the city, but then he and his team are all let go because Tony Stark has hired this new damage control group to take care of it themselves. So right there you see Adrian Toomes is now out of a job. He's gathered these guys to come work for him, and they've been gathering some Chitauri technology to turn into weapons so they can become weapon dealers. I like seeing that with Adrian Toomes because immediately you see that he wasn't necessarily a bad guy. He was a good guy and he got screwed, and because of that he's like, alright, fuck society, I'm gonna turn against it, I'll be a criminal. But I'll touch more on him later on. Let's get into Peter Parker. The movie flashes forward around 8 years later. You see Peter Parker being dropped off at home by Tony Stark and Happy, and Tony tells him, it's like, listen, you're not ready to be Avenger yet, you're just gonna stay here in New York, be a friendly neighborhood, look out for the little guy, we'll call you when we need you. And then from there you see Peter Parker doing his Spider-Man things. You know, he's still rocking the new really awesome high-tech suit that Tony gave him in Civil War, and he's just going around doing these little things that he can do to help New York, but you can tell it has him really antsy because he wants to go out, he wants to do more, he wants to prove himself. I really liked seeing that with Spider-Man, but what I also love seeing is Peter Parker having to deal with high school, because in the previous Spider-Man movies we saw that Peter was in fact a high school student, even though the actors playing him were way older to be playing him in high school. But you never really saw the high school dynamic that Peter Parker deals with. I mean, you saw a couple clips of him in high school, you know, dealing with bullies or classes or whatever, but you never really saw, you know, the struggles that he has to deal with as a normal high school student. This movie has to deal with the fact that his only real friend is his best friend Ned, and, you know, they're kind of social outcasts, they're losers. Peter's obviously a really smart kid, which is important because he's supposed to be. And, you know, you also see, you know, he's trying to talk to this girl he likes named Liz, but he doesn't know how to. And he's also dealing with being, you know, bullied and tormented every day by Flash Thompson. And let me get into Flash for a second, because I know this was one of the areas that fans kind of had a problem with. Because we're used to seeing Flash as the big jock douchebag bully that just picks on Peter Parker because, you know, he's weaker than him. You know, what you stereotypically see a bully to be. In this case, though, Flash is essentially part of Peter's friend group. You know, he's also a fairly smart kid. He's on the debate team with Peter. He's essentially part of Peter's social group. I actually thought that worked really well because it makes it a little more difficult for Peter because, you know, most kids, you know, their bully's probably maybe more popular than them or in a completely different social group with them, so they're never going to deal with them, you know, on a regular basis. In Peter's case, he has to deal with Flash on a regular basis because he's part of that social group. It seems like it kind of made Peter feel trapped in a sense, and I thought that worked for it. Then one night, it's that scene in the trailer, you see Spider-Man go to investigate a bank robbery, and you see all these criminals wearing these Avengers masks, and they're using this really high-tech gear to steal money out of an ATM. I love this scene for a few reasons. I mean, one, you see Spider-Man just really kick these guys' asses, which is great, because you see Spider-Man's a badass. But it's another moment right here where you really see Spider-Man's humor, because people forget Spider-Man's one of the funniest superheroes ever. So the fact that he's toying with them, he's shit-talking them, you know, just joking around with them as he goes along, it just made the scene that much better. It's one scene, he sees a guy wearing the Iron Man suit. It's like, Iron Man, what are you doing here? Why are you robbing an ATM? Aren't you a billionaire? That doesn't make sense. Scene actually had me chuckling pretty hard. I liked that. And then later on, he tries to bust these two guys that work for Adrian Toomes and trying to deal weapons, but the Vulture, Adrian Toomes in his suit, he comes, swoops Spider-Man away, throws him into the lake, nearly drowns him. But luckily, Iron Man shows up. Well, Tony sends one of his suits, you know, after him to save him, and he tells him, it's like, dude, what are you thinking? Be more responsible. Which you can tell is visibly frustrating Peter, because he's all like, dude, stop treating me like I'm a kid. You've still got my suit on the training wheel process. I want to go out, I want to be a superhero, I want to be like you. But then when he returns home, it turns out as he sneaks in and climbs through the ceiling, turns out that Ned was there in his room, so now he knows that Peter's Spider-Man. Now from this point forward, a lot of people may have started to find his character annoying. Me personally, I didn't. You know, I think it pissed off some people that, you know, now from this point forward, you know, he's, you know, asking Peter a lot of questions. It's like, dude, how do you develop that web? How do you climb walls? What was it like meeting Captain America? Really, don't bullshit me. If you found out that your best friend was Spider-Man, you'd be asking them a butt ton of questions too. And what I like seeing is Ned at this point, it's like, dude, you're fucking Spider-Man. We could go out, we could tell people you're Spider-Man, or at least say that you're friends with Spider-Man. Instantly we will become more popular because nobody likes us. Even that girl Michelle, played by Zendaya, is just sitting at our table for the sake of telling us that we're losers. And what I did like seeing throughout this movie is Peter is open to that idea. He does want to try and, you know, help with that, help their social situation, and, you know, be a part of his social group. But at the same time, because something's always going on that he has to tend to as Spider-Man, he has to go do that. And I love seeing that because it shows the struggle that he has to deal with. You know, he's a high school student. They're under a lot of pressure already. There's way too much going on in their lives as it is. He has to tackle being a superhero as well. It's one of the reasons everyone really loves Spider-Man 2, because, you know, it shows that, you know, Peter's really struggling to, you know, maintain his life as, you know, a superhero and a normal guy. And it's one of the reasons everyone loves Spider-Man as a superhero so much, because, you know, you can relate to him so much, because we've all, at one point or another, felt just completely overwhelmed by life. I mean, sure, none of us have Spidey powers or anything like that, but you don't need them to feel that way. And that's why people love Spider-Man. But what I love also seeing right here is you discover how smart Ned is, because we all know how smart Peter Parker is. It's nice seeing he's that way too, in that moment where, you know, he's on the computer and he's able to remove all the disabilities on Peter Parker's suit. So now Peter's able to use his Spidey suit to full capacity, and it's so awesome. He's got a little voice in his suit that talks to him, kind of like how Friday does for Iron Man. You discover that he has all these different web shooting possibilities and combinations. His little Spidey emblem can be a tracking device. It's really cool to see. I also like seeing it has little features like this gliding suit and like a parachute and things like that. So, you know, if he's ever, you know, in a situation where he can't really use his webs to attach to anything, he can still get out of it. Thought those were nice features. So he tries tracking down the Vulture, who's trying to get some more weaponry, but he can't do that, and as a result, he misses the decathlon that's in Washington, D.C., but soon they discover that the power cord that, you know, he and Ned were studying is actually a grenade, and Ned, Flash, and Liz, they're all in the Washington Monument right now in an elevator. That thing's about to go off, which is gonna kill every single one of them. So now Spider-Man has to climb the Washington Monument, which is a really, really fucking tall building. And what I love seeing is Spider-Man's pretty freaked out by this. And the reason I like seeing that is not just because it added intensity, but it shows you right there just how much of a kid Spider-Man is, because, you know, he is. I mean, granted, I think anyone in that situation would be a little freaked out by that, but the way you see Spider-Man freaking out about it is exactly how a kid would. But yeah, just as the bomb's going off, he's able to bust through the Washington Monument. He's able to save everyone from dying. There's this one scene, though, where, you know, he's hanging upside down and Liz is right in front of him, and, you know, the voice that runs his suit, which he's named Karen, is all like, Peter, you should kiss her. Felt like it was making a joke to the first Spider-Man movie. I thought it was funny. But now Peter knows he's really gonna stop the Vulture and his gang, so he discovers that their next move is to get to Staten Island Ferry to take care of some more weapon deals. He's able to take out most of the Vulture's guys, but now he's gonna face the Vulture himself. But this time, you feel like with his suit, you know, and its unlocked potential, he's now able to put up more of a fight with him. But then one of the Vulture's weapons goes crazy, and it just splits the fucking ferry in half. Now Spider-Man has to stop that from happening, or everyone on the ferry is going to die. And you see how strong he is. He's actually stopping the ferry from splitting apart. You know, completely reminded me of that scene in Spider-Man 2 when he stopped the train. But this time, Tony Stark actually shows up in an Iron Man suit. He helps him save the ferry and the people. But it's right here at this point, Tony's completely fed up with Spider-Man. It's like, you have been way too irresponsible with all this. Dude, everyone was laughing at me for wanting to bring you on board, but I told them that I saw something in you, but you know what? Maybe they were right. And you see in this speech right here just how much Tony does in fact care for Peter. You know, he's telling him all this. He's telling him how, you know, he feels responsible for him. It's like, dude, I don't want anything to happen to you. You really feel like a father-son relationship has slowly but surely been developing between Tony and Peter. And Peter's just trying to say, like, I just wanted to be a hero like you. And Tony's like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna need the suit back. You're not ready for it. And Peter's like, but I'm nothing without it. And then Tony says, and I love this line, he's like, if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. It was like a really nice twist on the whole, you know, with great power comes great responsibility line that we're used to hearing. And it's at this point, Peter has just decided to just, you know, return to his high school life, just focus on that. You see right here that, you know, he's starting to mend better with that. You know, you feel like he's getting more on top of things. He's even able to ask Liz to the homecoming dance, which, I mean, I guess he technically did, but, you know, he was terrified the whole time. He didn't know what he was saying. In other words, it's how I tried to ask out a girl in high school. Difference is, here it worked for him. But then comes the night of the dance. Peter goes to pick up Liz, and who answers the door? It's Adrian Toomes, which at first I was thinking, like, wait a minute, did the Vulture figure out who Peter is? Did he abduct them? Is he like holding Liz and her mother and her father hostage or something like that? No, not the case. You discover here that Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, is Liz's dad, which once I pieced that together in my brain, I was just like, oh, awkward. I mean, Peter is just pale in the face. He doesn't know what to do. He's completely freaked out right now, which, you know, anyone would be if you discovered that the guy's been trying to kill you, has been doing all this illegal shit, is your girlfriend's dad. And it's as the Vulture is taking Liz and Peter to the dance, he's hearing all these questions about Liz saying like, oh, Spider-Man saved us from the Washington Monument. But Peter, where were you? You disappeared out of nowhere. He's hearing all these questions and he's starting to think to himself, wait a minute. Oh my gosh, this kid is Spider-Man. You know, when he says to Liz, it's like, alright, you go into the dance, I gotta give Peter, you know, the dad talk. And the Vulture, he's got a gun in his hand, he turns to look at Peter and he says, listen, you saved my daughter's life, I'm very grateful for that, so because of that, I'm gonna let you off with this warning. Stay out of my business, you don't know what I'm going through, you're a kid, you don't understand. If you try to step into my business again, I'll kill you and everyone you love. But Peter knows that the Vulture's now big final plan is to hijack the Avengers plane that's transporting weapons from the Avengers Tower to their new headquarters. And you see the conflict in Peter. He's like, he's just someone that's trying to provide for his family. He did get fucked over by society, but it doesn't change the fact that what he's doing is very illegal and very dangerous and very wrong. But nope, he still does the right thing. He does what is definitely best. He tells Liz, like, I'm sorry, I gotta go. And he goes to take on the Vulture, except this time wearing the shitty homemade Spider-Man suit that we saw briefly in Civil War. So he goes to confront Vulture, and once again, Vulture's trying to tell him, it's like, dude, just leave here. You know, I don't want to have to fight you, but I will if I have to. You don't understand this yet. You're just a kid. If you were an adult, you would get it. Hearing the arguments he's making, he's just like, yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, the adult world is much different than the kid world, you know, especially when you have a family that you have to provide for. You know, you'll go as far as you will to make sure they don't have to suffer. I just like seeing that motive for the Vulture, you know. It's not like he's this bad guy that has this motive for doing what he wants out of selfish reasons. He is just trying to provide for his family. He's just doing it in an illegal way because that's what he's been stooped to. But, you know, he uses his suit to basically collapse the building on Peter. Now Peter's trapped there. Vulture's off to take care of his business. And then comes what is definitely one of the best scenes in the whole movie. Peter's just trapped under the rubble. He's stuck there. He's freaking out. He's crying. He doesn't know what to do at this point. You see the kid in him once again. Then he stops. He sees a puddle in front of him. He sees his reflection. And then he remembers Stark's words, you know, if you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. And that fuels Peter's fire right there. You hear him say, it's like, come on, Spider-Man, come on, Spider-Man. And he's able to hoist the rubble off of him. He's ready to go back after him. It's just moments like this are why I fucking love Spider-Man. So now the Vulture is able to get into the plane, and his goal is to just get at least one of these boxes of weapons, because he knows if he gets at least one of these, he and his crew are going to be set for life. Peter's able to get to him. He's able to intercept his plane. He's able to turn the plane away from the city because it was about to crash, so he gets them out of the city's way. So Peter's just throwing down the Vulture. The Vulture's kind of kicking his ass, but Peter soon discovers that the Vulture's suit is about to explode. But what you can continue to see that makes Peter Parker and Spider-Man just such a great person is after that suit explodes, he goes in there, he brings Adrian Toomes out of there, he saves his life. So, you know, Peter leaves him for the police. He is, of course, arrested, which results in Liz and her mom now moving away because they just don't want to be around when the trial's happening. And you really do feel for Liz because, you know, it is her dad, and now he's gonna go to prison forever. And, you know, she's heartbroken by what Peter did because he did blow her off a few times. I mean, you understand why, but he can't tell her he's Spider-Man, so she doesn't understand why. And with her gone, that girl Michelle is like appointed the new captain of the debate team. And at this point, she actually tells everyone, it's like, all right, my friends can call me MJ. The second I heard that, I'm just like, oh shit, is she gonna be the Mary Jane of these Spider-Man movies? I will say, this was not so much a flaw that I had with this movie, but it is something that I didn't really understand because, you know, throughout this movie, I really didn't see any sign of a romance or connection between Michelle and Peter. I mean, the whole time, she was being really bitchy and snarky with him. People have said, though, if a girl is acting that way to you, it does mean she has a crush on you. I never really understood that. It's one of the reasons I was single throughout high school. I don't know if that was just meant to be an Easter egg reference for the comic fans or whatever, but part of me thinks they are intending to make a relationship out of the two. I didn't really see anything for that in this movie, so I'm gonna have to see what they do in the sequel. But now Happy brings Peter to go meet with Tony, and Tony at this point says, dude, you proved me wrong. You took on the Vulture. You proved me that, you know, you don't need the suit to be Spider-Man. You did awesome, you're a hero, and I want to personally invite you to be a part of the Avengers. We have a new, really awesome, badass suit we want to give you. We got a press conference waiting to talk to you. What do you say? And you're thinking, yes, Peter's finally gonna get everything he's been asking for. You know, he's wanted to be an Avenger for a really long time. He's gonna be treated like one. He's gonna get to work with Tony Stark and all these awesome people. He's gonna get a really badass looking suit. But no, again, Peter's like, you know what? I'm going to respectfully decline. I'm going to stick around in New York City. I'm going to keep being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I gotta look out for the little guy. And it's in this moment you see Tony Stark, and Happy for that matter, definitely surprised by his decline of the invitation, but you can see in Tony that he's actually pretty proud of him for saying that. It's like, you know what? You're doing the right thing here, kid. Good on ya. Which now gives Tony an excuse to go propose to Pepper at the press conference. But it's when Peter comes home, you see that Tony in fact has a box for him there with a note that says, this belongs to you. You see that he's returned to him his suit back. Best way to end this movie though, Peter's putting the suit back on, but he left the door open so Aunt May sees him, and the final line of the movie is her seeing him wearing the Spidey suit, and she's all like, what the fuck? And then the credits just immediately started rolling. It's gonna be very interesting to see how she takes Peter being Spider-Man. I really hope they find some way to work with that throughout these movies. I don't know. I don't know if he's gonna find a way to maybe be like, no, it's just a costume, I swear, but it's a really, really good costume. But then, of course, we gotta get a couple post-credit scenes in here, and the first one is you see the Vulture going to prison. You see him meeting with one of the prison inmates, who I believe is Scorpion, and he tells Vulture, it's like, yeah, you got sent in here by Spider-Man? A lot of us did. A lot of us want to kill him. And we've heard that you know who he is, but the Vulture tells him, it's like, if I knew who he was, he'd already be dead. You feel like right there in that moment, the Vulture is thinking like, yeah, I am in here because of Spider-Man, but what I did do was wrong. But Spider-Man did also save my daughter, and he even saved me. So no, I'm not gonna expose who he is. And then I gotta say, the post-credit scene, you know, the scene at the very, very end of the credits is just classic. Throughout this movie, you've seen in like the gym class for these high school movies that Captain America has been, you know, on these videos giving like motivational speeches and things like that. And in this one, he gives one, it's like, hey, I'm Captain America, and I know you all know about patience. Sometimes you wait around for something for a really long time and you expect it to be great, and sometimes it's just not what you hope for. How many more of these do I have to do? I was dying laughing. I'm just like, that's priceless. So all in all, Spider-Man Homecoming was everything that I wanted it to be. Tom Holland proved even more so that he is the best Spider-Man and Peter Parker we have ever gotten. I know everyone's probably sick of me saying that, but he is, and I will not stop saying that because he's fucking awesome. You buy him as the nerdy, awkward, shy, really smart Peter Parker, and you also buy him as a really funny, badass, great superhero that is Spider-Man. And the whole time, you clearly see the kid that he is, because that's who Spider-Man is. Michael Keaton was fantastic as the Vulture in this movie. It's very rare that you see an MCU villain be really, really awesome and really memorable. but he absolutely was by far and away the best Spidey villain we have gotten since Doc Ock and Spider-Man 2. Peter and Ned had really good chemistry with each other. You really bought that they were best friends. The two of them just had some really funny moments together. Zendaya was great in this movie as Michelle. I mean, you kind of just see her in glimpses throughout this movie and like places you don't really expect to see her, but when she's there, she delivers some really good one-liners. Definitely interested to see what her role is going to be in future movies, even if it is as a love interest for Peter. Tony Stark was great in this movie. What I loved is he's not in this movie for very much, because in the trailers, a lot of people were freaking out that he was gonna, you know, basically be a bigger part than he needed to be, but he's really not. He's only in this movie for what he needs to be in. I was also very happy that the trailers didn't give away as much as we thought it would. There were a lot of surprises throughout this movie, and I was so happy for that. The writing was fantastic. The action was so great. I loved seeing what Peter's suit is capable of doing after he unlocks it. I mean, that was just so awesome. I love that this movie was also a high school movie and showing the dramas that, you know, Peter has to deal with in high school, because it's what any kid has to deal with in high school. It reminded me a lot like a John Hughes movie from the 80s, which would definitely explain the Ferris Bueller reference in this movie. And in the end, I love the direction that Marvel took with Spider-Man. I love that Sony allowed Spider-Man to be a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And in my humble opinion, this is the best Spider-Man movie we have gotten to date. So that's all I gotta say. Guys, thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.